She lost her life here in such a violent way. Hey guys, it's Marianne. We're here to discuss the 30 years unsolved murder of Krista Martin.
And who is she?
Krista Martin. Krista Martin lived next door to us. Krista and I were more like tomboys, and so we just, right from the moment we met, we just got along. We were both kind of goofy, kind of nerdy people.
A year older than Marianne McCullough, Krista Martin is a friend she'd never forget.
I mean, Krista has continued to affect my life since I was a child.
In October of 1989, 20-year-old Krista Martin was found beaten to death in her apartment on South Osage in Wichita. It was a place she had recently moved into. Police say she was dealt a fatal blow after being struck in the back of the head with a blunt object. That murder weapon still hasn't been found. Many details remain unknown, but Marianne, a true crime podcast host, vowed to do anything to find out what she could. So right now you've started this podcast.
Yes. In 2013, I had a stroke, and I had to reassess everything in my life. And I sat there and I thought, what am I going to do? I thought, I cannot leave this world without knowing who killed Krista. I can't.
Was I supposed to expect you guys to share her case when you know nothing about her?
Who would think a woman with a lisp and the most annoying voice in the world could ever do a podcast? But I decided to do it. And I thought, I need to do this. I need to do this to get her voice out there because she can't speak for herself. And that's what I did.
She spent years searching Krista Martin's name, but never found anything new. Marianne felt alone and isolated, pleading Krista deserves so much more.
When it comes to Krista herself, I feel very alone. And I'm not upset for me about it. I'm upset for her because she deserves more than that. I see so many other stories where a murder happens and you see the vigils. You see the schools coming together on anniversaries. You see the families coming together. And I'm just standing there shouting her name to anyone who will listen. And it's heartbreaking, not for me, but for her.
There was an incident at Krista's home a week prior to her death. It was a domestic dispute, but it's unclear if Krista was involved.
All we know is one man was tall and the other man was short. I have been requesting Krista's information from the Wichita Police Department over the span of multiple years, and I've heard no information back.
So I can find out that one thing, that one answer that keeps me up at night. Who killed Krista Martin?
Rough drive over.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. Sorry.
She continues to voice her frustrations online, but one place she avoids is where Krista once called home.
This is the second time I've been here in 30 years. My life would not be the life it is without her. And yet I feel like I've let her down because her life ended here. And I wasn't there.
You're here now, making a difference in the ways that you know how. You haven't let it go.
I understand the wheels of justice move slow. I completely understand that. I understand how investigations go. I understand that. And I am not pressuring police to automatically have justice and have an answer. How can you expect a community to get involved in a case and give you any tips? I mean, you need a little bit more from the police department to get involved. And it's platforms like these that I think truly make the difference.
Who do you think has these answers? You know, friends, family, people who were with her that night?
I believe that the core of it lies with the people who were with her that night at Toto's.
And after that conversation with Mary Ann, we got a call that would change the entire story.
We won't give you all the details right now, obviously, because we will have to release it all at the same time, but he wants you to know that we have met with Mark Bennett, and Mark Bennett has agreed that we will charge a suspect on this case that we've identified. Unfortunately, the suspect is deceased. The FBI was involved, we were involved, the DA's office is involved.
Well, I certainly appreciate you giving me this. I really do appreciate it. It's awesome that, you know, you all have someone named and you've been, you know, you didn't forget about it. It's been 30 years.
Yeah, I can tell you that her biggest advocate, her biggest supporter to this point in time has been her niece, has been the one that's been, you know, pushing and prodding, if you will, the police department along the way. You know, like, hey, what's going on? What's the status of it?
That's amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you for being transparent, for your honesty, and for looking out for us.
Not a problem, Hannah. I appreciate your advocacy on Krista's behalf and on all of our cases.
And that was a call from Detective Vandermolen, who's been working the case since 2020. You finally have a resolution. What? Just tell me.
We found an individual who lived in Wichita in 1989, and shortly after the murder of Krista Martin, October of '89, this individual up and left Wichita and went back to Arkansas. He lived around the corner from Krista Martin. I drove it one day, and it's 6 houses from Krista Martin's house where she was murdered at. And I was like, this is crazy. And it gives me goosebumps to talk about because it was there. We just didn't know it until, you know, a couple months ago.
What was there, though, was a family tree and a DNA profile of a potential suspect.
We use genetic genealogy on this case. It's kind of a big buzzword right now in law enforcement and across the country. This was one of the first 2 cases that we opened up with genetic genealogy in the Wichita Police Department. This was the first homicide that we looked at through that lens, and so that wasn't available back in '89. So it was down to one of 2 guys in that family. The guy that lived around the corner, or a brother of his, ultimately found that the suspect, of Krista Martin's case, his name is Paul Hart.
Is he 100% the person that did this?
I'm very confident that he is the individual that it was involved in this murder.
For years, you know, even up in when I started in 2020, we kept thinking, this is someone that Krista knew. You know, she let someone in her house because she knew who they were, and then this happened. The way she was found, you know, we believe that it was someone trying to protect her dignity, if you will. You know, it has to be someone that she knows. That's what we kept going back to over and over and over again. This is somebody Krista Martin knew because she let them in and they had some respect for her, if you will. But when we got to the bottom of it, those were just merely theories. It turns out that it was probably somebody she didn't know or somebody she had just randomly ran into.
She was sexually assaulted, right?
She was sexually assaulted. We believed her to be sexually assaulted they believed her to be sexually assaulted in '89. And so they did a sexual assault examination kit on her back in '89. That evidence was collected, packaged, and held onto. Put it in property and evidence, and there it sat.
Even though the case was never forgotten by the department, it was looked at heavily again in 2009. And even then, there were no matches to this DNA that they had from the scene in '89. But things changed, though, in 2020.
Was it ever sent off?
No, not till '09. Sergeant Dan Hardy, who was a detective in the homicide section in '09, was going through old cases, came across Krista's, and saw that there was a sexual assault kit that needed to be tested. And so it was sent off for testing.
Okay, so for the last 10 plus years, it's not hit anything until now.
Correct. Okay. And it hasn't hit anything in CODIS at all.
Oh.
Just because Paul Hart's DNA is not in CODIS.
What about the people who would combat that and say, oh, you had this, why didn't you test it? Like, what would you
Hindsight's 2020, and I wish we would have tested it back in '94, '95 when CODIS came online.
But who was to say that would even have made a match?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Today, again, it's in CODIS currently. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in CODIS for Mr. Hart.
So now when you pulled this photo out and you're looking at her, what would you tell her?
I'd tell her that we finally caught the guy that did this to her, and that she didn't deserve to get what happened to her. Mm-hmm. Then no one deserves that, you know, but she was in her own home, just young, 20 years old, enjoying life. And for what reason? You know, doesn't make sense to me.
Hello.
After learning more about what happened, we went back to Osage and hit the pavement.
So Krista was a 20-year-old woman that was found deceased at a home up there in 1989. I heard about it. Yeah, that's what I was trying to see if y'all lived here during that time. No. This is the building where she lived. Osage. I don't want to peep in. Oh Lord. Working?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just didn't know if you remembered back in 1989 someone being killed up there.
Well, I was working on hours that
Yeah?
time, so I worked.
And by going out there, we had no luck.
It's a little bit too far back for me.
That's okay. Okay. I just wanted to ask to see if you knew anything or remembered.
No, I don't.
Weeks after that conversation, a conference was held with what so many wanted to hear and what so many wanted to say.
Finally, in April of 2023, a possible suspect, Paul Hart, emerged. It was discovered Mr. Hart died in a traffic collision in Memphis, Tennessee in March of 1999. WPD investigators were able to utilize IgG techniques to confirm that Mr. Hart was the suspect in the 1989 homicide of Krista Martin.
My name is Ember Moore, and I'm the firstborn niece to Krista Martin. I first became involved with Krista's case in 2009 when I turned 21, which also happened to be the 20th anniversary of her death. I am glad we can finally move forward and have peace knowing that Krista's murderer is not walking around free or amongst us. Again, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to everyone involved in bringing justice to Krista's case. She deserves so much more out of this life than what she ended up with. Thank you.
Got local law enforcement, federal agencies, advocates, victims, family members. What does this day mean to this entire community?
I think it provides closure, not only for the family, but for the detectives to know that something we started in 1989 before any of us were here, we could finish.
It's her. Thank you for Ember. She did her due diligence.
Yeah, she never stopped.
Just never stopped.
Yeah.
So we're blessed to have her.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The following is a one-on-one interview with Ember Moore, Krista Martin's firstborn niece and advocate.
You've been the family advocate for a while now. Did you happen to watch our article from 2009? It was a Crime Stoppers report from a former reporter.
Yes, I was in it.
You were in it? Mm-hmm. Oh, where?
In the darkness.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, they did a good job because I would have never guessed. I would have never guessed that was you. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, you've been in this room before?
Yes.
Now you're back.
Mm-hmm.
But this time with answers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How does it feel?
Good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How so?
It's just nice to know that that person's not running around anymore.
Let's just, I guess, start from the top. Who are you in relation to Krista?
I am Krista's firstborn niece.
Firstborn niece.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some photos of her holding a baby. Was that you?
Yes.
That was you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How awesome is it and how cool is it and special to have those pictures of her holding you?
They're very special because that's the only thing that I have.
What do you remember growing up about your Aunt Krista?
I don't remember anything. I was 11 months old when she died. The only things that I can remember are, things that her friends have told me and, that my family has told me.
What have you learned or what sticks out to you about her?
Probably her kindness. That's the one thing that everybody can agree on.
And so why are you pretty much the representative for the family? Why is it you? Why did you take that role upon yourself?
I think my mom and my grandma had, I don't want to say moved on, but they hadn't, made contact with anybody in several years.
And when I turned 21, I had outlived my aunt, and that's when I contacted detectives again.
Just pretty much following up on it, or seeing what's new, seeing how you can help. Like, what was that conversation like?
It was kind of strange because they had actually started working on her case like a couple weeks before I even had called. So they had randomly picked up her case on their own. So it wasn't because I had contacted them. So
talk about timing. When you learned, you know, what was it, probably months ago, weeks ago, when you learned this most recent update from the detective, how did you feel? What were your thoughts? What was going through your head? Just walk me through that moment.
He called me on the phone, and I was actually, I had been sleeping because I had worked third shift, and I was in shock because I didn't ask any questions after that. I you know, had to call my grandma and my mom and tell them, but I was in shock, I think, for like 3 days afterwards. It didn't feel real.
Probably still a little shocked, huh?
Yeah.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
So were you, if you don't mind me asking, 35, 34, 35?
I'll be 35.
35. So it's been nearly 35 years since this happened, and you're now getting some answers. Do you still have more questions than answers, or is that what you were looking for from all along?
I think that's the main answer. The only thing that we'll never answer is the why.
When you learned that, or you probably learned that, you know, talking about the suspect, that he was deceased, what did you think about that?
I think I was a tad bit disappointed at first because I kind of wanted to, you know, have to go through a trial for that. But then I was actually relieved because I also don't want to have to drag my grandma through a trial because it's a lot harder on her than it is the rest of us.
So who's going to be in attendance at the news conference?
My aunt's father and my step-grandma, they'll both be there. My mother, my aunt's two friends, Kim Shipman and Dawn Treefethen, and then also Mary Ann will be there.
Cool. Cool. So friends, family. I would imagine this group probably hasn't gotten together in its entirety in a while, right?
No.
Be the first time in,
you
know, a while.
I've seen each one,
Oh,
you know.
cool.
That just, but no, nobody's been all together for a long time.
Yeah. Did you, you know, 34, 35 years, been probably in the back of your mind, did you ever think this day would be here?
I think I've always felt like it would be. I've always had that confidence.
In police work and detectives? And
in
what?
the detectives, Dan Hardy was on the case before Adam Vandermolen was, and Dan Hardy really took the case to heart, and he took it very personally.
You think that made a difference?
Yeah.
Through forensic genealogy, this is how this kind of came to be. I was talking to the detective, and he was saying, you know, they didn't have this back in 1989 or even 2009. So just, can you just, being grateful, I guess, for the advances in technology, allowing you all, a family here, to get some answers.
Exactly.
Yeah. How cool is that?
It's very cool.
Yeah. Just because I was asking Detective Vandermolen, hey, what's the purpose of the news conference? He said, 1, to bring closure for Krista's family, 2, to generate awareness of forensic technology and the advances in DNA technology, that kind of stuff. But just to, you know, share, like, we're doing everything we can. We're reaching out. We're doing this, you know, trying to find funding to have these kind of tests and stuff like that. So I feel like the department, I'm not the family, I'm not you all, but that's a step that not everyone gets. I don't feel like everyone's family gets this kind of forensic genealogy stuff, and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty special that you were able to get some answers through this new stuff. I think, what is it, the first or second homicide case? second case that WPD is working or worked or something through forensics. Was able to get some answers. That's really cool. So the news conference on the 2nd, I guess, what are you looking forward to most? Is it just hearing them say we've got somebody, or what are you looking forward to on Monday?
I'm mainly looking forward to seeing everybody together.
Up until this point, we've only heard what happened about Krista from either police and Mary Ann. Is there any stories that you recall that your mom may have told you in memory of her, or just something that, I mean, like I said, we've only heard it from Mary Ann's side. How does the family remember Krista? Who is Krista to you guys?
And you can just look at me, you don't have to. Any stories in particular?
No, that's kind of a hard one to answer. The story that sticks out in my mind the most is my mother telling me about her and Krista when they were little, and they used to walk to the mini stop, which is now the Subway in Hayesville, and they would buy candy together. That's just something that's always stuck in my mind. I don't know why, but
yeah. When you told your grandma and your mom this latest update, or when the detectives told you all, what were they like? Were they shocked, stunned, thankful, relieved? What were some of those emotions?
Shocked and relieved, I think.
Yeah.
Tell us about your particular journey on this. The detective said that you was one of the major advocates, which was a surprise to us because we would assume that would have been Mary Ann. What was the journey like over time of you, I guess, trying to find answers? I don't know if you worked with Mary Ann or not. Like, just talk about the years up until this point for you.
Okay. I haven't met Mary Ann until recently, and I don't think I've ever heard a whole lot about her until recently. When I started in 2009, I actually went to the Hayesville Police Department and asked them, who I should contact in regards to that, and they pointed me in the right direction. And it was Ken Landwehr, that's who I talked to first, and he sent me to Dan Hardy because Dan was the active detective on the case. From there, it was basically me, I don't want to say bothering Dan, but I would send him emails maybe once a month or every 3 months, just asking him if he had updates. And we went over in detail people that had been checked, people that had been, marked off the list, and who was on the list. And of course, I added people to it and gave him names, and but it was pretty consistent.
Cool.
What was the most frustrating moment throughout the process working with or trying to get answers?
Probably just the time, because everything takes a long time. Like when they'd send off for the DNA testing for the other, people that have been checked off the list, there would have to be, I think, 4 or 5 of them all at once. You can't just send one at a time because all of our DNA in Wichita is sent to Kansas City, and it's just a big, I don't want to say it's a mess, but it's a big job to send it over there.
Did you have a theory on the case before we found out this was a stranger, or what the detective said is a stranger?
There was a couple people that I felt very strongly about. They did not want to give their DNA, so that made it difficult to
we tell them to, okay.
made it difficult to believe their innocence.
Gotcha. Did the suspect's name ever come across your list? Did y'all know anything about this person who was a
No.
complete stranger?
Yep, he was a complete stranger.
Doesn't make it any better or worse, it's just still happened.
Yeah.
Is there any final, words or anything that you want to say about this case, about Krista, about the family?
I'm just glad that it's over, and that I no longer have to think, that maybe I'm walking through a grocery store with this person. Or it is kind of weird though, because I have lived with it my whole life, so now I'm kind of, I don't know what to do now.
So what's next for maybe you and the family? It's like, chapter closed, but I mean, it's still there, still.
Yeah.
So what's next? Anything?
Just remembering and carrying on her legacy.
Did she like the Dallas Cowboys?
I'm not sure.
I think all the pictures that we've seen, the few pictures that we've seen, it looks like a Cowboys jersey. I don't know, of her holding you. Like Lou.
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask.
If that was maybe something. I'm like, maybe she
I'll have
likes
to
the
ask my
Cowboys.
yeah, I'll have to ask my mom.
Cool. That's when they were last good, huh? Back in the 80s.
Okay.
I think you're a Cowboys fan, right?
Yeah, relax.
I had to.
Relax.
Right.
So previously you were in the shadows. Are you okay with us identifying you in that previous report? Because we'll probably
That
do
was
some of
really
that
you?
footage.
Yeah.
No way, that was you. Huh.
One of them, yeah. It was myself and my mother and my grandma.
What was the reason that you wanted to be hidden, or that grandma wanted you to be hidden?
I felt like that we needed to be, because we didn't know. We didn't know who,
Yeah. For like safety, security.
Yeah.
If they.
I was pretty paranoid back then.
Why not so much now? Or are you?
I'm not as paranoid now. I probably should be.
Why?
Just, I should probably lock my doors all the time.
Oh, I do that anyways.
Yeah.
I was like, anything else maybe? Just, we're sitting down with the niece. You're the niece of Krista, extremely tragic way for someone to die. And you have, not everyone has a family member who's gone through something like you all have. And you're getting some answers. You got some answers. You're getting some resolution to this.
I think now, I think we're all interested in knowing more about the suspect.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
My grandma and my mom have come to me with questions, and I can't give them those answers because I don't know.
What do you want to find out, or what do you hope to learn?
I think mainly they want to see a picture of him. I don't know why. I guess that brings closure to your mind, maybe. But we don't know how old he was, or we don't know any of that information.
So what did the detective share?
Just his name.
Gotcha. So anything about where he lived, or?
That he was originally from Arkansas.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Are you all, or you even personally planning to have any, and you don't have to answer this, but any relationship with Mary Ann, since
like moving
you
forward?
just now learned kind of she's been doing whatever she's been doing, or whatever you learned. Do you plan to do more with her, or is this kind of, I know my aunt had this friend now, and I'm going to move on, and she can move on?
Yeah. I will probably go forward and do stuff with Mary Ann.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So you hadn't heard of her up until?
No. No, I know her family.
Oh, cool.
But I had never met her or
Oh.
knew about her specifically.
Yeah.
I knew her three brothers. 3 of her brothers. I think there's 8 of them.
Oh
altogether,
no, I didn't know
so,
that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
How did you learn about her?
I saw, I Googled my aunt's name, and her podcast came up on there.
Did you listen?
Yes.
What'd you think?
It was all right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing, just, because I look at cold cases and speak to detectives and, try to do the same thing that you're doing, find answers for people if there's answers to be found. But, in doing research, like, you search her name, there's not a lot that pops up, so it's like, okay, how can we tell a story about a woman who was, killed 34 years ago, and there's only a couple pictures of her online. So it's like us trying to also find information and pictures and stuff too, and that's when we saw our old report from 20 years ago. So we'll put that in the story as well, just to like reference back, that kind of thing. Why'd you want to talk today?
Just because nobody else in my family was going to, so.
And that's
I felt like it was important for me to do it.
Yeah. Can I ask you a personal question?
Yes.
If you could tell your aunt anything, would you talk to her? What would you say to her?
That I love her. And that I miss her.
How often do you look at those photos of you two?
Probably every day. I have a picture of her. I mean, I have a few of her up like, in my house, so.
Have you shared with your family about your aunt?
They know about her, but like my younger ones are a little too little to understand that, so.
Well, you're sharing her story for them one day too, so that they can know.
Yeah.